Alright, hello and welcome to the Honored Madman 10K Special Extravaganza Q&A video thingy. So first off, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate all of the feedback, and I just can't thank you guys enough for 10K. I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. I got a fucking notebook full of ideas for videos that I really won't be able to rest soundly until I complete them. So the visuals for this video are going to be pretty random because I didn't really know what to fill them with because I'm going to be answering a bunch of random questions. So bear with me on that. I'll try to just keep it dope scenery. So I'm going to answer all the questions that were commented on both of the posts I made in my community thingy, the status-like things you can do on YouTube. And I'm also going to answer some questions I've seen on other videos that I've randomly been asked. Because why not? More questions means longer video, and we all like longer videos, or maybe that's just me. I always prefer longer videos. So the first question was just about what gave me the idea to start making lore videos. Well, to answer that without rambling on and on and on, I would say I've always been into like video game lore and just fictional mythologies from various book series. I read like the Assassin's Quest book series from Robin Hobb when I was really young, and that really got me into fantasy. I also didn't have the internet much growing up. Like there was a couple like 3 or 4 month periods where I had the internet and I utilized the shit out of it while I could, but for the most part I didn't really have access to it growing up. So I would pretty much just immerse myself in these fictional worlds, like just Legend of Zelda lore, Elder Scrolls lore. I was really into Morrowind and Oblivion, the Fallout series, even Fallout 3, mapping out the entirety, exploring every last endless metro tunnel, reading all the terminal entries. I don't know why, I just liked the world building of games like that. Even in like Gears of War, I would try to find most of all of the collectibles just so I could piece together what the fuck was even going on. But yeah, to answer the question simply, I just have always been into fictional lore and stuff like that, and I didn't really know anything about making videos, and I just kind of wanted to talk about my knowledge of all of these random lores and my random theories. And Elden Ring was coming out, and I'm really into the From Software series. Like, I'm a pretty big fan of it, and I figured that'd be the perfect jumping off point for a channel. Is a game like Elden Ring was surely going to be like Dark Souls in that most of the lore was going to be vague. Like, we were going to get a good amount of lore in this game for sure, but a lot of it was going to be left up to interpretation. And I love interpreting things my own way and theorizing, and I figured, hey, yeah, this is perfect. I could maybe actually make videos about this. All it would involve was just my knowledge and me theorizing, and then I would learn the video editing and the recording along the way. And that's more or less what I did. I just took my genuine love for fictional lore and just started applying it to a video game that really kind of demands the player to really form their own conclusions when it comes to the lore, if they even care about the lore at all. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends, we play the Souls games and they couldn't give two shits about the lore, and that's fine too. I mean, they even say that, you know, the lore is sort of an afterthought in these games, and you could certainly look at it that way. I don't, but I can see how people do. I think part of the love I have for From Software games is just the unraveling the mysteries that most of the time don't even ever have a definitive answer. They just have a few different possibilities, and it has to be at least one of these 4 different possibilities. But yeah, it's just out of a love of theorizing, as well as a love for talking. The next question is, will I ever cover any other Soulsborne games? And the answer is unequivocally yes. At some point I will get around to making a video for each of the Dark Souls games definitively, including Bloodborne, and then like various lore topics and theories in those games. I just haven't replayed them in a bit, so I would need to replay them to refresh my memory. Next we've got my Elden Ring Dream Blunt rotation. So I think that the ideal amount of people to smoke a blunt, or rather the maximum, is 4. Anything more than 4, it gets excessive. Me, ideally 2 people, but you know, for the sake of naming more characters, we'll say 4. And if I name any more than 4, we'll just say that there's more than 1 blunt in the rotation. We never really said how many blunts we're going. But starting off, since I'm a big fan of the whole Carrion royal family, I would want probably E.G. and Witch Hunter Jaren, just reminiscent. I imagine Jaren's been all over the world. He's got a lot of stories. EG has seen a lot and knows a lot, so he'd probably, I don't know how forthcoming he'd be, but after I got him high, maybe he'd be willing to tell me a thing or two about what's actually going on, what Randy's plans were, or just how involved Rykard was in the Night of Black Knives, stuff like that. So them two for sure. I would invite Rykard as well, because he's my favorite demigod. I think that him being blasphemous would be, would bring about a lot of cool topics. He also has traveled beyond the lands between, so I think he'd have interesting shit to bullshit about. Although I don't know if anybody would want to hit the blunt after him, given his current state of affairs. I would invite Boggart too, so he could tell me Elden Ring prison stories, because we don't really know what it's like in these prisons. We know the Dung Eater cursed and mutilated his friend in prison, so there's not much guards keeping track of these guys. They're probably just all thrown in a big fucking ruin style prison where they're like secluded from the rest of society but can't get out, and they've formed their own sort of civilization in there. So yeah, without rambling on longer about this, those are my 4 for now. I would invite both Ranny and Melina for lore reasons, and because there's a lot of stuff that I know that they know, but they're both incapable of smoking, I imagine, being non-corporeal. So anyway, moving on. So someone else asked if there was a specific channel that got me into making Elden Ring lore videos, and I'm a big fan of Hobbies like everybody else, but I think I'm also a big fan of Zoli the Witch. There's a few other ones too that for some reason are escaping me right now, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting your guys' names right now. You have my deepest apologies. But there's a lot of Souls channels I've watched and have made me think twice about something I interpreted one way or another, and that made me kind of want to also do that, and mainly for the reason I already stated earlier, like I love fictional universes. The next question is if I have any hobbies or anything I'm willing to share, and I guess the one big one is I really like to write. I've been trying to finish a story for the longest time, and I always get about halfway through them and then I don't know how to end them, or I know how to end them but I don't want to write the tedious part, and I don't know, I've just been trying to keep myself motivated on that front to finish a story. But yeah, I would say writing. I like to write. I hate driving, and I like watching TV, anime, American cartoons, playing video games, and watching extremely obscure movies or forgotten about movies are some of my favorites. There's not much else I can think of off the top of my head, but let's go to the next one. Am I going to cover Beastmen, the Shadows, and stuff like that, etc.? The beasts. The big lion chain beasts, I imagine, is what they're referring to. The chain ones we see in Castle Sol and at Redmane Castle, and I think there's a couple random ones just in Caelid. But I'm going to do videos probably that covers them and the Beastmen all together. The Beastmen are currently kind of eluding me of their exact origins. Like I said in the previous video, I think there's some kind of lapdogs of the Golden Order or the Greater Will, and they just sort of do their bidding. The Graveyard Shadows I find a little more kind of vague, but I saw a video from someone about them, and I can't remember it for the life of me. This is why you shouldn't get too stoned. But yeah, I can't remember. I saw a video about them. I need to find it again to rewatch it because it convinced me of what the person's viewpoint was. You know what I mean. Favorite strains of weed? I mean, I'd have to say Blue Sherbet. There's just nothing like that taste. There's plenty of other strains I like too. Like, I mean, if we're going back like 11 years, then I would say like Strawberry Cough for sure, stuff like that. Cherry Pie, all those old strains. Those probably don't really hold up anymore, but those were the last time I really paid attention to what was the big weed strain. Nowadays, I know that like Gelato, Biscotti, and different kinds of runts were big for a while. I forget what it is now. I think I had a pound of like lemon cherry or something more recently. I don't know, like I said, I don't even really pay attention to names anymore. I almost want to do a video that just kind of highlights just the cool weeds that I've had over the years. But I'd say the most recent strain I've had that I'd say is currently my favorite would be that Blue Sushi. That shit is nuts. I've also had the Yellow Sushi as well, but it wasn't as good as the blue one. Very good stuff. I forget the grower and the brand of it, but I recommend it. And I'm more of an indica guy, but almost everything I smoke nowadays is hybrids. Haha, yes, this was a question I remember when it was commented. Nightmare, A Song of Ice and Fire, blunt rotation. Now, I'm a pretty big fan of George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, and I'm pretty familiar with the characters as well, even the more obscure ones, so I think I'm just going to go more in the direction of obscure for this group. We're going to go 4, just like the last blunt rotation. But this one's more about just putting 4 awful people in a room that would interact the funniest. First up, I'm picking Craster, from the wildling with all the daughter wives. Then I think the Red Priest Makoro would have an interesting interaction with Craster, because Craster says he's a godly man, and Makoro serves a god that is sort of in opposition to the others. Grand Maester Pycelle would be next, just because I hate charlatan old men, and it'd be interesting to see his interactions with 2 fanatics. Probably a lot of, And I think last but not least, I'm going to go with Liza Aaron, just because she's batshit insane, and she's probably breastfeeding her 15-year-old kid while she's hitting the blunt, because that's just the level of nuts she is. So those were just the 4 most awful people I could think of that would go together in a room. Makoro, he's not as awful as the rest, but I find him very suspicious. I mean, he's basically just doing what Melisandre's doing, but in a different way. But anyway, moving on. Worst apocalypse and why? Any apocalypse where... Actually, no, I'm not even going to go there. Lisa the Painful's apocalypse, where all the women just straight up disappeared and there was nothing but men. Trust me, that game showed me just how dark that fucking civilization would be. But keep in mind, I'd be okay with a Children of Men style dystopian future. I mean, Michael Caine is a pot-smoking hippie in that future. I'm with it. Next up is, what other series do I want to make videos on? Fallout, Metal Gear Solid, Yakuza, Legend of Zelda, and it also asks what are my favorite series. Well, these are definitely some of them. I like the Dragon Age series a lot. I have never really played Inquisition, but I was down with the first 2. I love Mass Effect. I love the Fable games. The first 2, again, I don't really fuck with the third one. If we're going further back, I really loved Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance, and Radiant Dawn. I like Three Houses too, but those 2 I just hold a special place in my heart. I may have already mentioned a couple places that I love the Pikmin games. The first 2 of my favorites. The third is also really good, but it just doesn't quite live up to the heights of the second one for me. Still a great game, and I hope they make a 4th one. I didn't really like how they made Louis turn into a total douche, but I mean, the guy controls the Titan Dweevil to try and take you out at the end of 2, so I guess it lines up with his character. But those are just a few from the top of my head. I also like the Fallout series and the Elder Scrolls series a lot. But that's all I can think of off the top of my head right now. There's probably plenty more that I'll be regretting once I remember them and realize they didn't make it into this video, but let's move on. Next we've got do a video about bong tips, and sure, I could do that. I'm probably not the best person to take advice from on keeping a bong clean though, because sometimes I let it get a little bad before I clean it, and that's not something you should ever do. We got one that says, what are my 3 favorite movies, TV shows, and games? Now, this is not my definitive listing. This will be the first 3 that I really like that come to my head for each of these topics. But for 3 favorite movies, at least currently, I'd have to say I really liked The Gentleman with Matthew McConaughey by Guy Ritchie. And I can safely say In Bruges is probably one of my favorite movies of all time, so that should also belong on this. And I think I'll do a wild card for 3. Porco Rosso, hands down, in my opinion, the best Studio Ghibli movie. But that's just my opinion. I'm also a big fan of a lot of the other ones too, like Princess Mononoke is another one of my favorites. Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind, Castle in the Sky, they're all great. Next up is the TV shows. So I've been watching It's Always Sunny since like I was 12, so like roughly 2007 or so. And I'd have to put that on this list just because of the influence it had on my sense of humor in general and just what I find funny and my general style of finding things funny. I genuinely probably wouldn't be who I am without that show, as goofy as that is to say. Second, I'd have to say Black Sails, definitely one of the most underrated TV shows that ever existed. Almost every performance in that show, in my opinion, was just downright amazing, honestly. And for the third show, I'd say that I'm going to put an anime on here. I know that there's another question about what are my favorite animes, but I'll just put this one as one of my definitive favorite TV shows, and that would be Samurai Champloo, another show that greatly influenced like my sense of humor and what I thought was a cool character, and especially my love of soundtracks. I love video game soundtracks, anime soundtracks, TV show. If I hear good music, I download it. I don't care if there's no lyrics in it or not, or if it's just in one scene from a movie. If I like it, I download it. That's just how I am. So I'd say my love of soundtracks probably came from that. And my 3 favorite games, if I had to say 3 off the top of my head, I couldn't not say Twilight Princess, and I couldn't not say Oblivion. There's too many games I would want to put in this list. Like these, I don't even know if these 3 that I name would definitively ever be my 3 favorite games of all time, because there's too many games I like. But if I had to pick a third one, right now I would say Pikmin 2 probably, or Guns of the Patriots, even with all the bad stuff. Something about that game is just really, really special to me. Again, not definitive, because there's plenty of other games that I would also put in my top 3. I'm just stoned and on the spot. Oh yeah, what are some of my favorite anime? So I'm a really big fan of Blood Plus. I would credit that with actually getting me into anime besides Yu-Gi-Oh! I was obviously into Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was really young, like everybody else my age. But I was too young to consider Yu-Gi-Oh! As watching anime, even though that's exactly what I was doing, and that whole statement is entirely ridiculous. But you know what I mean. But I would say Blood Plus, Bleach, and Full Metal Alchemist, along with Ghost in the Shell, and I believe Cowboy Bebop. But pretty much the old Toonami lineup, that whole shit got me into anime. Now, I know it's like blasphemy, but I was never really big into Dragon Ball Z. I really like Dragon Ball, but I'm not a big fan of Z. And I can't mention anime without mentioning my love of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I know it's a meme now, and I really discovered JoJo's through an old meme back when Part 2 was airing about Caesar's death. And I saw the meme and I really wanted to understand it because the animation on it looked really cool. So I found out what it was, and I watched Part 1 and Part 2 Battle Tendency, and I didn't go any further from there. Then some years back, I think probably like 2017 or something, actually 2 of my friends were really adamant at getting me to continue watching JoJo Part 3, and I think Part 4 was out at the time, I'm not sure. But I sat down and watched Part 1 from the beginning and up to where it was currently at. It might have even been up to Part 5, I think, when I finally sat down and watched it all in a succession. But I fucking love that series, and I'd say Part 2 or Part 5 is my favorite. It's really tough. I like Part 3. Part 3 gets a bad rap, and I feel like I understand why, but I also really like a lot of the stuff that happens in Part 3, and I like Jotaro a lot. He's not my favorite JoJo, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I was happy every time he showed up in a part. And I think his theme is probably the best out of all the JoJos. See how easily this Q&A video turns into a JoJo's rant? Anyway, other animes I think I really like, I'd say, Attack on Titan I'm a pretty big fan of. I know that the ending is super fucking ridiculous in the manga. I've actually read ahead after I think Season 3 I started reading the manga, and yeah, not really big fan on how it ends. I'm a big fan of everything that leads up to that, but I do agree with the whole Chapter 139 thing, and yeah, that's become a meme too, but for good reason. But as it stands, the anime is fucking top tier, one of the most brilliant looking animes I've ever seen. I think Demon Slayer is cool too. I think it might be a little overrated though, in my opinion. But without dwelling too much on that, another one I would say Made in Abyss, Rising of Shield Hero. These are all ones I really like. Dr. Stone is really good too. I really like that strongest primate high schooler character. He reminds me of Cars from JoJo's. And I really like his title, like the strongest primate high schooler. Like, that's fucking hilarious. But anyway, I've rambled on enough about anime. There's probably plenty of others I forgot to mention, but let's go on to the next one. Do I have a favorite strain of weed? Earlier I named off a bunch of ones I liked, but I'm going to say Sunset Sherbet for the sake of simplicity. And do I have any hobbies outside of video games and watching TV shows? And am I binging any TV shows or cartoons or anime currently? Well, I'm always binging something. Right now I'm rewatching JoJo's in anticipation for the other part of Part 6. I've read Part 6 and 7, and I'm loving Part 8, which I didn't start reading until I found out it ended. So I'm currently reading and watching that. I also have been rewatching Invincible. Oh, the Orville. I'm a big fan of the Orville. I really hope it gets a 4th season. I mean, even if it had to end on the way it currently stands, I'd be happy enough it got that kind of ending, but I definitely want more. I think it deserves like 7 or 8 seasons and maybe a couple movies if it's doing the whole Star Trek thing. Because look, I'm not a big Star Trek fan. I think Deep Space Nine is dope, but that's really about as far as it goes. I just like the idea of the space station and the characters on it, and Cole Meany is really great. But the Orville made me really like that style of sci-fi, and it really pulled me in. I think that the show is super underrated and deserves a lot more recognition. I was also going to rewatch Tower of God because I saw it's finally got confirmed for a second season, and that's an underrated anime too. And of course, I'm still watching Better Call Saul like the rest of us. I haven't really watched any of Westworld. I see that brought up a lot. Never really watched any of it besides Alt-Shift-X's videos because I didn't feel the need to actually watch the show myself because it seemed like a confusing mess. And I really like hearing that guy explain shit. So I watched it all through his channel. As for hobbies outside of video games and TV, I like collecting random shit, like random memorabilia and stuff. Like, I've got an old Fleetwood Mac Rumors album. I've got that National Geographic issue from The Leftovers, the specific year and month that's supposed to mean something and have the answers in it for Kevin Jr. from the hit HBO series The Leftovers. One of my favorite TV shows. Definitely super underrated. Great show. Also shit like random figures from shit like that. I like putting them up. I'm not into Funkos. I honestly, nothing against you if you collect them. I just personally do not like Funko Pops. I'd rather have like an actual figure that looks like what it's from, not like a little chibi version. Plushes are fine. I buy my girlfriend plushes all the time. Those are cool. Those, like, you know, as a collection, you end up seeing all of them and you're like, oh damn, that's pretty impressive. But, you know, I like collecting shit. I guess that's just a fancy way for saying I'm kind of a hoarder, but I don't know. I like collecting old knives, old weaponry, which is, I know, kind of like a trope. But mostly just stuff from franchises I like or from obscure shit I like. Now, I know it's not obscure or anything, but I've got like a replica of a laser rifle from Fallout. Just a pretty, it's obviously smaller scaled. And I tried to track down a replica of Venom Snake's hand, his prosthetic hand. That's currently something I'm hunting right now, but just stuff like that, little random stuff. Like, I've got a replica of MF Doom's mask hanging in my room. An old marijuana Assassin of Youth poster that I had to piece back together myself from a bunch of scraps. It's an old poster from like 1964 or something like that, and it was like in pieces, but then I stuck it all to a big cardboard board and pieced it all back together like a puzzle. Just shit like that. And besides that, I leave my house to take my dog for walks. There isn't much else I do on the regular, though. I'm a pretty boring person. All I know is get stoned, watch TV, play video game, make video. And we've got another one. What is my favorite pastime? I don't think I've ever admitted this to anybody before, but looking up random stuff about insignificant story details or plot details about something I'm watching after I finish watching it. Because I spend a whole hell of a lot of time doing that. I just sort of dig deep on certain details of a story or a movie I'm watching, and actually a great way of putting it would be, I love looking up useless information and doing deep dives on it. I love it so much that it's almost involuntary. Alright, so the next question is, if views matter to me or if this is sort of a passion thing or for fun. Now, I'm doing it for fun. I mean, for the longest time, like my first, I think 2 months, I wasn't even getting anything out of this. Like, I was only getting 200 views, and it wasn't until somehow my Servants of Rot video blew up and it actually started getting people to look at the other videos I was making. And, you know, I was really just doing it because I wanted to see if I could. So at the end of the day, the views really didn't matter then. But then once I started getting a following, once I had around 2K, and I was actually seeing growth from videos that got a lot of views, I started getting bummed out when one of my videos that I put a lot of work into wouldn't do as well as a video that I kind of just threw together in a couple minutes. So that's when I decided to try and take more time with each of my videos. I know that they're not the super polished stuff that everybody else is used to, and I know that's why you guys like my videos, is because I'm not trying to be like any of those guys, and I never will be. That's not my goal at all. I mean, I hit my bong while recording, and that doesn't make me better or worse than anybody. That's just something I've done to try and I wanted to create my own sort of style and not brand, because I feel like the word brand, I hate corporate logo, all that bullshit. That starts getting all disgusting kind of talk. I just wanted to find my own style and niche. to fall into. But to answer your original question, I'd say views do matter to me because I want my channel to grow. But I'm not really doing this for views at the end of the day. I'm just going to make videos regardless if they do bad or good. But it is nice to see when a video you put a lot of effort into blows up or does really well. That's always a really good feeling. But it's a feeling that I see a lot of people get addicted to, and I don't see myself ever falling victim to that. But I am always trying to grow my channel, which is another term I hate. I hate how many times I've had to say growth. I think that's what the YouTube studio fucking dashboard thing does to you. You start saying growth all the time. But yeah, if I didn't genuinely like making videos, I don't think I would actually make them. Because sometimes there's like days where I don't want to finish editing a video, and then I tell myself, I'm like, no, the finished concept will be really dope, and it's going to be worth it just to see that. And then that's what actually gets me to finish it, which is a corny thing to say, but it's true. What other games and shows will I be covering? Like I said, the Yakuza series, Legend of Zelda, Elder Scrolls, the Metal Gear Solid especially, other Dark Souls games. And as for shows, lots of stuff. Like I want to do like those YouTuber style video essays, but my own versions of lots of different films and shows I like Deadwood, The Sopranos, Hell on Wheels is one that I've actually been writing. I'm writing a whole little side essay about the character of Thomas Durant from Hell on Wheels because he's an iconic and really underrated character that I've seen in TV, and I haven't really seen any other character quite like him. I think he's great. But yeah, in the future, just expect a lot of random stuff from TV shows, movies, video games. It's tough to say off the top of my head because I've named off a lot of stuff in this video already, but just definitely expect a lot of stuff. Top 3 ways to smoke, and do I do dabs? Well, I used to take dabs for quite a while. I first, I think, came across dabs in either like 2011 or 12. This is how fucking old I am, which might come as a shock to some people, and it might not be shocking to others, but I'm sort of old. I'm in my late 20s, but now I'm being dramatic. It's actually probably more like my mid-20s. Either way, I was big into dabs from like 2012 to like 2017 or 18, and then I just kind of stopped really smoking them, and I just kind of mainly focused on weed. I've always got a lot of dabs and weed on hand because of reasons. So like if I wanted to take a dab right now, I could, but I don't think I have a torch. But I've got like a nice little jar of dabs. So the option is always there. I think I just prefer smoking weed, taking more than one hit, and getting a slow kind of a slow drive to get stoned as opposed to a sprint to get stoned. Top 3 ways to smoke would be bong, of course. I'm big into a joint with a little bit of dabs in it sprinkled throughout it. Something about that has a nice smell and taste. That I will still do. I just don't usually take dabs straight up anymore. And like I said, I could take one. It's just I don't have a torch. When I was younger, I used to love those tarantula blunts that I saw in a Joe Blow music video one time. I used to think those were dope, but now I don't really see the point to them. I think there's a point if it's keef, but if it's just random pieces of weed, I think that smoke isn't actually going into the blunt. It's just going into the air, and you're kind of just wasting those crumbs anyway, but they are just crumbs. So, you know, who cares? That actually kind of reminds me of this time when I was like 15. I went to this party that was at a hotel room, and it was someone's like birthday party or something like that. And I had with me like, it was like a 5-sack, so it was a nice little fat gram bag. Back 2010, 11, fucking forever ago. But I ended up rolling up my weed into a blunt and smoking it in the closet. I think I matched a couple girls with one of my friends. It was pretty cool. And then when it was time to go back to my friend's house, I noticed this tray that had been like the tray that all the people were using outside of the closet. They were smoking lots of blunts because this party was kind of ridiculous. There was a lot of smoking going on. And I noticed there was a fuckload of crumbs on the tray. And I remember filling up my empty bag that I came, you know, it was full when I showed up. But I remember filling it up with all the crumbs and then dipping out with one of my friends and smoking fat. I have such a very vague memory of that night, but I do remember those events happening. Someone asked if I'm going to talk about all the Fallout games or just the popular ones, and I've never played Fallout Tactics. I'm definitely going to talk about Fallout 1 and 2 if those are the ones that are considered least popular. I think 2 is probably one of the coolest ones out of all of them. My favorite, though, is obviously a very unoriginal take. My favorite's New Vegas, just because it combines all of the cool gameplay that 3 had with the cool character and world building that 1 and 2 had. And 4, well, I don't really even like to talk about 4 unless I'm hating. Except for Dogmeat. I love how realistic Dogmeat is, and I think that, you know, Valentine is a cool follower, and I think Deacon's even a cool follower. There's just so much wrong with that game that isn't enough to get me to consider it a decent, worthwhile experience without several mods. Next question is if I'm going to do any videos about Cyberpunk or if I've even played it. And I have played like the beginning of it. I just didn't get much further than that. My girlfriend bought it, and we share games on Steam, so I can play it. It's right there available for me to play. I just have not put that much time into it. I really like The Witcher 3 though, so I have a feeling that I'll be able to look past the glitches of Cyberpunk and see the game for what it is. But I'm eventually going to play it, so yeah, there probably will be a video on it, at least one at some point. Like I said, I'm going to probably be doing this for a while now. I don't plan on stopping making videos anytime soon. There might be some like little gaps, like recently there was like that whole week where I didn't upload, and that was just because this stupid video editing software was driving me crazy and I had other things going on, so didn't have as much time to fix the problem. But I'm back at it now. And someone asked me, why did America's top blow off when she broke the wing? Or is there other reason why she's rocking the bare minimum, jewelry not included? I would just assume that she's been there that long, or she got hit with one of those waves of gold from the Elden Beast, or got knocked around by Radagon. Like she had a fight with herself, like we've seen in stuff like Fight Club maybe. And in that process, her clothing was ripped, exposing her assets, crumbling as they may be. Another one, will I cover the lore of Doom? Yeah, I'd have to replay Doom and actually finish Doom Eternal, but those are dope-ass games. The only reason I haven't finished them is because I get sidetracked by other games or like old games. I'll pop in my fucking GameCube and play One Piece Grand Adventure instead of finishing a game that I'm working on a video about. That's my big issue. And I think the last question I have on here is the Elden Beast simply puppeting Radagon's body around in our fight? So it'd actually be like when Ganon uses Puppet Zelda? Yes, I think that is a great theory and a big possibility. Or, you know, maybe Radagon was just that loyal to the Golden Order. Maybe he really was their lapdog, or their Leal Hound, as America referred to him as. But I think it's definitely possible that the Elden Beast is puppeting him. So this video ended up being a lot longer than I expected, but I answered all the questions I could find. But if I somehow missed your question, please comment it and I'll answer it straight up in comment form. And maybe if the audience viewership does well enough and the reviews aren't too bad, then there may be a sequel to this video when I reach another milestone where I feel fitting to make a special video. And any questions that were left over or I've forgotten about from this one will be answered in that one in video form, even if they were answered in comment form. Which, after all that talking like a robot I just did in that past 2 sentences, I'm gonna need another rip real quick. Let's take a rip before we go, shall we? Also, real quick, screw OpenShot. That's what I was using for all my videos. It is the most frustrating video software I've ever used. It's also like the only video editing software I've ever used. So I guess I had a really low bar and I didn't realize how bad it was. But I'm going to slowly be getting used to a new one, and bear with me. But without further ado, let's get on with our hit. Also, I'm kicking myself in the head for this, but I didn't mention Peacemaker when I was asked about what my favorite shows were, and unequivocally, Peacemaker. That's probably my favorite show of this year and the past couple years. That is a fucking well-made show, and I have a written essay, I just need to put it to video, about how good it is, and you guys will see that one day. I'm tired of teasing my projects and then taking hella long on them. You guys have my eternal apologies and appreciation for the patience you guys have with me. Someone who's willing to discuss his projects before they're even finished, which is a little ridiculous when you really think about it. But I just want to say I really, really appreciate you guys. You guys are the best subscribers on the platform and beyond that. I really enjoy this little community we've sort of been forming on the channel, and it's really dope. I honestly never expected anything like this and am extremely grateful for it. So this none of this shit would be possible if it wasn't for y'all. You know, that's just the honest truth. So I really hope you guys keep watching and stay tuned for all the dope shit I'm going to be making. But I've rambled long enough. This has been the Honored Madman Special Extravaganza 10K. I will see you guys next time. The next video will either be one of the 3 I've hinted the most. And without further ado, I will leave you guys. Be safe and see ya.